What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcasting News Award winner, and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, once a month, I host the only online show for dads and fathers in the world that is sponsored by Dove Men Care and also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. One other thing, of the many things I do, is I'm also the board chair of the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia nonprofit that highlights Blacks in the diaspora that are involved in food, wine, and travel. You are seeing something brand new tonight with Dr. Vibe. For a long period of time, if you followed me, I'm very passionate about fathers, dads, and men. And over the last 2 weeks, I've been quite engaged on a new social media app. Well, it's not new anymore. It's been around for about a year, called Clubhouse. It's an audio-only messaging conversation platform. And I've been involved almost every day on a platform that we talk about manhood, men's challenges, men's wins, etc. And deep inside of me for a long time, I wanted to say, when am I going to start doing conversations for dads? And about a week or so ago, I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I've been in conversations with a lovely lady named Beth who said, I've got two guys that are great for you. So on the first inaugural conversation of Dads Talking, and they didn't know I was going to say this part, but I know they're going to be good with it. I'm very blessed and highly favored to have Jeff Miller and Shawn Fry of Potentia. There they are right here. They're both from Texas. We finally got them on. They tried to blame their challenges over the last few weeks on me, the Canuck, the Canadian, but I pushed it all back. But I'm really grateful to have both of them with us tonight. We're going to talk about fatherhood. They have some great perspectives and thoughts and stories about fatherhood to share with the audience tonight. So I'm very blessed to have them on the first episode of Dads Talking. Gentlemen, how are we?
I'm doing good. After that Canuck cold.
Doing great.
Feeling warm. It's back in the 70s here. Feeling good.
And Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Now I have to correct you, Dr. Vibe. Now Shawn and I are both happy residents of Texas.
Yes, I know you
and
are.
They've welcomed us, but neither of us are from Texas. As you'll hear, I'm from Boston and Shawn is from Philly. So we've got we bring some definite Yankee perspective to the Lone Star State.
No problem. Let's get the company stuff out of the way first. And both of you, what is Potentia all about? How did it start? How did it come to about? And then also, how did you two meet?
Okay, so Potentia, so I'm the CEO and founder of Potentia, and it's really appropriate that we're having this conversation about dads because the Potentia is a social enterprise, and it exists because of my son. My son was really the spark that lit the idea that became Potentia. My son was diagnosed as autistic at 6, wow. And as my wife and I adjusted to that, reality and figured out what we needed to do to support him and kind of help him be his best self. A lot of that was around school, and we bounced from public to private to homeschooling him. And then when he was about 16, it was actually at my mom's funeral, and I was across the room and I was watching Charlie. And I was watching Charlie comfort my father. And it hit me in that moment that I needed to raise my game, and I needed to really understand not just what, Charlie needed kind of on a year-to-year basis, which a lot of parents of neurodiverse kids will recognize that kind of year-to-year plan that you go through where you're like, okay, well, how are we going to support Charlie in 7th grade or 8th grade? I realized I really needed to up my game. And start thinking about what adult autism and adult neurodiversity was going to look like. And that led me to a research project, deep dive, really just as a dad to figure out what that was going to look like. And what I discovered was just how big and how amazing this population is, how underserved it is in corporate America. And so we can get into the specifics of how we do what we do, but our mission really is to bring opportunities and highlight the strengths of the many millions of individuals who are neurodiverse around the country and around the world. And that's what Potentia does, and that's what we're about.
Fantastic. Shawn, how did you find out about the company, and how did you find out about Jeff?
Well, interesting thing is we were talking about the powers of people with autism. I grew up with autism before it was really a thing. Asperger's syndrome was not really an official diagnosis till the 80s. And so I grew up in Philly without any diagnosis. So, same thing. Philly's a hard place to grow up. They don't really have a lot of tolerance for social differences. And one of the biggest things about autism is learning how to socialize, learning how to integrate with people, make friends, just do the basic things other people do. It was always a struggle for me. But through that course of time, we can get into later how I kind of figured things out myself. I brought that Philly attitude. And people with autism have abilities. We have prolific memories. Our ability to focus on things and concentrate on things makes us special. And I built a company out of that. I grew up as a hospital administrator. I was brought in just to manage some of the data, understand things. And I turned that into I helped the hospital become successful. I built a company. When I sold that company to private equity, I was looking to see what I was going to do with the rest of my life. Up to this point, I had never disclosed that autism, but I thought it was really important to let the world know, because most people with autism who can try to hide it. It's called masking. And a lot of your kids are going to find these things. You're not going to find these things out about your kids till later in life, the ones that can help it. Well, Charlie is a great kid. Him and I get along like we've known each other forever, but, sometimes it's more obvious, sometimes it's less. But Charlie and I at our core have the same kinds of things. So after I sold my company and I decided what I was going to do the rest of my life, one of the financial advisors I had introduced me to Jeff and says, "Hey, I know this guy that wants to do things for people with autism." I was like, "Well, I've got autism, so maybe I can weigh in here on how we can make this thing work." And I introduced Jeff, and we got along and said, "I want to help people with autism get jobs." Well, I want to do the same thing because I've got 2 daughters with autism.
Wow.
And there's not really programs out there that really take anybody up to, and Jeff can cover some of the statistics, but 80% of the people who have autism, who have college degrees, are unemployed. It's a staggering number.
Wow.
80%, again, of people who have autism with college degrees are unemployed. So Jeff and I decided we were going to team up. We're going to put a dent in this. And Jeff can tell you, we're already putting a ding in the universe. So
that's amazing, gentlemen. Whatever I can do for the cause, like right there, please reach out to me. I think that's huge. Like my heart is full. Just my heart is full by what you're doing.
That was the stat. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the stat that Shawn cited was what made me say, all right, I need to do something to move the needle on this, whatever it is. In my background, I'd run consulting and staffing companies for 20 years. So I come from a background basically of employment. And so that number offended me. It offended me as a dad. It offended me as a business person that you could be a college grad, bust a 3.8 someplace, work your tail off, and then because of some differences in the ways that you communicate, you can't get a job. That's unacceptable, right? The thing that led me to found Potentia was, as I dug deep and as I studied it, it became just how apparent how much these businesses are missing out when they don't hire these folks, right? So turnover goes down, productivity goes up, innovation goes up, because you're literally talking about not just diversity, which is a wonderful benefit in and of itself, but you're talking about diversity of thought, right? You're bringing in people who literally think differently, and there's intersectionality there. It doesn't distinguish whether you're by gender or race or ethnicity or right, orientation. Neurodiversity cuts across all of that, and yet this idea that companies that hire and actually that have programs that are welcoming of neurodiversity. Because the other trick with it, the other secret with this that a lot of people don't realize is that, you know, a lot of people who are you know, very talented at masking, like Shawn is. Now he'll tell you that it exhausts him to do it, but he's really good at it, right? A lot of people who are neurodiverse are already working in these companies, but they don't disclose for fear of the stigma that comes with it. And so, you know, they're arguably not bringing their whole selves to work. And so one of the neat things about what we do is when we encourage companies and we show them how to hire these neurodiverse individuals, then you have people who are already in the company who start to raise their hand and say, actually, I'm neurodiverse and I've been here for 10 years. I never felt safe to come forward and tell anybody that, but you know, I love what the company's doing, and I want to be a mentor for these new hires, right? So wow. it has this multiplier Beautiful. Effect that's really profound.
You know what? I'm already going to ask for a part 2 to have a deeper dive on what your organization does and how it's positively changing people's lives. If I can get, we need to have a separate conversation on that. There is someone that has a question, and I'm going to put it up because hopefully you can ask it quick. We can answer it fairly quick. So Ryan is asking, I feel like I may have grown up with undiagnosed autism. Is there somewhere you would recommend talking to someone?
We have those resources. Besides Potentia, one of the other things I did was I founded a nonprofit. It's called the Neurodiversity Foundation, and it's literally designed to help people get these resources early. For both the parents out there that are listening, and parents who have children who they suspect may have autism or ADHD or dyscalculia or dyslexia. These are all different ways brains function. And let me give you some reference to this about college and things like that. You know, I have multiple patents in mathematics. You see them over here on the wall over here. I was able to do all these different things intellectually, but something you might want to know, might not know, is I've never gone on a job interview. I don't know how to do it. Never. I've become quite successful. For over 20 years, I would not walk into a bank because I don't know what to do when I get there. And I know I look normal, and Jeff related to this before. I don't know how to fill out forms very well. They cause me incredible anxiety, so I just don't. Like, I don't take things back to the store in case I have to fill out a form, so I just give away anything that's broken. There are so many things about autism that people don't understand, and if you see your child that has struggles with these are things we can help them do. It's not that we can't do the job. When I've gotten a job, I've been very successful. I can learn things. It's just a matter of, you're talking about undiagnosed autism, that stress, that sense and feel you have. If you have these things, let us help you find someone, because once I got diagnosed and once I knew what it was, everything kind of changed in my life. So part of that exploration is, don't be afraid of that diagnosis. It really opened all the doors I needed. There are programs out there who will help you. There are people out there who can help you understand your child better, yourself better, your role in life better, how to be more successful. And if you get that word out to some of these parents out there who are looking to do this, dads who want to intercede, this is a great forum for that. So I'm so thankful for that question.
You know what? But you both are changing lives.
One other stat I'll give you is that.
Go
I was just going to say, when you talk about neurodiversity, and autism is the fastest growing element of neurodiversity, right? But neurodiversity also includes ADHD and OCD and dyslexia, as Shawn was mentioning. That's over 20% of the adult population.
Wow.
So it touches everybody, whether it's an individual and this is part of our message to employers, right? Because we really want employers who are curious about this to get neurodiversity competent. And when they do, it benefits these new hires that we bring in for them, but it benefits existing employees, as I was saying. It also benefits parents, right? Parents who have got kids who are maybe on the spectrum or or neurodiverse in other ways, and are looking for that social support network to help them navigate this stuff. Because I can tell you, for me, when Charlie was diagnosed, I was pretty ignorant. I didn't know a lot. I had to learn a lot, and having that social network that that can help you, some parents that had been there, is invaluable.
It's wonderful stuff. And Ryan had asked a follow-up question: is there a link to Shawn's site? And of course, Beth comes to the rescue. So, Ryan, if you want to find out information, there's potentialworkforce.com and then neurodiversityfoundation.org. And if you want to speak with them directly, I can get you in contact with Beth, who could hopefully maybe have a conversation with one of them, because already the information that both of you have shared, especially for dads, huge.
Right.
Absolutely huge.
Right. Awesome. If you fill out the contact form, I will be sure to answer the question personally if I can't, or direct you to someone who can. So it's an easy way to contact us. So thank you, Ryan. Thank you for your question.
Beautiful. So I want to turn back a little bit. I want to know what kind of memories you had as young boys growing up.
Well, I'll speak from the autism perspective. Growing up with autism, I don't like the same things other people like. We're very much introverted and things like that. And because I didn't have a diagnosis, it was hard to form a relationship with my dad. He wanted to take me fishing and hunting, and those kinds of things just weren't, they didn't work for me because they were scary. They were threatening. So my dad had a hard time bonding with me. But I can speak as an autistic parent. The children want that relationship, right? I think a lot of dads have a problem finding ways to relate to their children, getting down on their level. So it really, today I'm best friends with my dad. I talk to him all the time. If I don't talk to him for 2 days, believe me, I feel it. And there are ways that you can relate to people. So it's just finding something that you can relate to and relate on, finding something you can talk about, that common ground. That's where that relationship's forged. I talk to a lot of kids. If your child has autism, play their favorite video game with them. You may stink at it, but your kid is going to have a great time just spending that 30 minutes or that hour with you doing the simplest of things. Take them to their favorite restaurant. Have the same kind of crazy food. If they want to put jelly beans on their peanut butter, have a sandwich with them. It's not going to kill you. But all of a sudden you find out that they don't feel so displaced, and your bonds begin to form. And then that relationship continues to grow. They share more things. It's just people, I can speak of autism parenting, but you know what? It's really worked out well for parents I know that are neurotypical who still struggle to forge those relationships. So,
Jeff, what sort of memories do you have of your boyhood time?
Yeah, I was thinking about that question as Shawn was answering, and for me, and Shawn will tell you, we're partners in Potentia. We end up talking about parenting, on a regular basis, right? It ends up weaving its way into our business conversations, and I'll tell them, about a conversation I had with Charlie the night before or something like that. But thinking back on my childhood, probably one of the more salient events for me was that my mom had some really serious health issues when I was growing up, and so as a result, she wasn't around as much. And when she wasn't as reliable a figure because her health was so compromised, right? So really, my dad really became the central figure for me in creating that. And he, I think, intentionally sort of adopted more of a friend model with me. He was more of a friend than a dad at times. Definitely didn't discipline me a lot. And I tried to behave myself because last thing I wanted to do, given the challenges at the house, was create more stress on the family unit. But I can relate to that childhood trauma, that uncertainty of not knowing what's next and not knowing what's going to happen, what you're going to see when you come home from school that day. And Shawn and I have talked about that, and we've related, on that level where, and it's really underscored for me how we all have so much more in common than we realize, and then is, than any differences that we have. But that's what I think about when I think about my childhood, and my dad being that constant presence and creating that sense of safety for me, that I knew I had something I could count on in him. And I've very much tried to be that for Charlie as well, to be that now I'll discipline him a little more than maybe my dad would discipline me, but I want him to I want to be a constant for him so that he knows he can count on me, and that I'm going to be pretty predictable for him. And that's one of the big things that I've tried to carry forward that my dad gave me.
I love, Jeff, how you said you want to be a constant for Charlie. I love that. That's a powerful statement.
Right. That children need that.
Yeah.
I needed
no,
that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Shawn.
No, that's something that I really struggled with. I mean, my mother had different types of issues and things like that, and she didn't know how to get me to comply. So back then, punishment was far more probable. People with autism, we don't know what's expected of us. Like when we walk up, for people go like that. Well, that may be normal for you, but it's not normal for an autistic person. So we walk up and we stare at our feet. We don't make eye contact. I've learned to do that anymore. Well, that can get you a lot of wrath from teachers and parents and things like that. And they think we're misbehaving, right? We just simply don't know that that's expected of what to do. So I spend a lot of my time, even though I didn't do anything, I've never even stolen like a pack of gum. We're not bad people at heart, but we don't know how to socialize. We don't know when to start talking, when to stop talking. We don't know when we made a point. It creates a lot of struggles. So that consistency, my dad was very consistent, right? He never got angry with me. He didn't understand it, but trying to understand from a parent's standpoint. And with my daughter, as soon as she was born, I knew that she had the same sensory issues I did. If a toilet flushed too loud, or the lights were too bright, or a train went by, it would bring out she would just melt down and begin to cry. And it's part of what autism is like. But just letting her know, being there with them, just sitting next to her, letting her know it's going to be okay. For children, that can be everything. That consistency is what we need to show them. That let them work through life like they should. That's what I needed. Once I had that and understood that, I began to grow in many other ways, mature and expand outside myself and become more responsible. It's not that I didn't want to be responsible. Some ways we just don't know how. I find a lot of parents, a lot of children find that they need to have that consistency so that they can grow and be the freedom to make mistakes. I encourage my children all the time, go make a mistake. Let's see what's going to happen. Challenge yourself. That doesn't mean go drive your car 100 miles an hour. It means try out for the dance team, try out for the debate team, do whatever it's going to take. If you don't do well, you don't lose anything. So
that's great. That's great. Let me ask, and I'll let Jeff answer this question first. As young teenagers, or young men, did you have any mentors? And if you did, who were they?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an easy question for you.
I mean, besides my dad, I think the mentors that I had were so for me, as I said, that because there was some maybe uncertainty in the house, my refuge was sports. So my mentors were my coaches, and I had some that were great and some that were not so great, but the really good coaches that I had, taught me discipline and hard work, and again, they were consistent, they were fair, but they challenged you. They challenged you to be your best. And I think the best ones would also allow for a little bit of creativity, right? They'd let you figure out how to, like Shawn said, you're going to fail sometimes. And then what happens when you do, and how do you bounce back from that? So for me, coaches were a big part of my mentor group when I was growing up.
Shawn?
Yeah, for me, it's really easy. My grandfather Lacey was a remarkable man. He had lived through the Depression. He had been in World War II. He was one of the messengers for George Patton. He had, as a matter of fact, this is his flag. You'll see over here on the thing. It lives in my office as a constant reminder of the sacrifices people have made, our fathers before us. But after living through World War II and the Depression and rebuilding of America during its most difficult, one of its most challenging times, he was always kind to people, even when they had wronged him. And from a character perspective, I really looked up to him at the way he approached every situation and gave perspective about how bad things were or could be. And that fortitude just allowed me to continue on. And he knew I had struggles, but he spoke to me softly. He gave me some direction to let me know, listen, it may be tough right now, but if you stay on course, things are going to work out for you. And they did. And I will always be grateful for his kind words that allowed me to, prosper against adversity.
Well, that's huge respect to that, Shawn. Huge respect. Thank you for sharing that. Let me ask, let's take it back. Give us your memories when you first became a father.
Mm.
Jeff? I see Jeff smiling here.
So I'm the youngest of three. My brothers are 9 and 11 years older than me. So they were out of the house and gone, by the time I was about 10. And I was not around babies much at all. They were, older than me, but not at the point where they were having kids yet. When we were all, in the same town, and we've kind of spread out and live in different parts of the country now. So when Charlie came, as my wife would tell you, I was woefully ill-equipped to handle parenthood and what it took, and just I remember at one point folks saying, if you got any movies you want to see, maybe see them before the baby comes, because you're not going to have any time. And I thought, that can't be true. And actually it was. And there was just that level of just, and Charlie, I'm about 6'7", and it turns out I make really big babies. So Samantha's 5'8", and about that wide. So when 10-pound Charlie showed up, the first thing she said to me was, she said, "I don't know if we're going to do that again anytime soon." But Charlie was big and hungry and didn't want to sleep, and was just a force of nature. I mean, I remember when they took him to the I think it's the NICU to with all the other babies in the big room. He looked like a 6-month-old compared to these other babies. I mean, we nicknamed him Bam Bam because he was just a beast. He was 30 pounds when he was 1 year old.
What?
And so he was just big. He was just tall and long, and he was a tank.
Thicker than a Snicker.
I just thank goodness for my wife, because she taught me how to do this. I was clueless at the gate.
That's a great story, Jeff. That's a great story. Shawn, I don't know if you want to top that. You got a hard
There's no way. There's no way. I had the opposite experience. I was a guy with autism. I grew up, I was afraid of girls my whole life. Girls were afraid of me. I didn't have to worry about that. I had nothing but brothers. So but eventually, you stumble around. I found out as I got older, the less I talked, the more girls liked me. Just be big. I'm only 6'2", but still, just be big, keep my mouth shut. I get along fine with people. When my daughter was born, my oldest daughter was born, I mean, I was literally scared to death. What do I do? I have no idea how to relate to a girl. I have no idea what to do. But that fear, just what's interesting about a baby, you don't have to talk to them. They don't understand what you're talking about. So I spent time with it a lot of time. And I started to realize just holding her, just being in her presence, brought out a feeling in me that I just couldn't explain. The desire to grow, the desire to listen and just be there and understand their needs in a lot of ways that my needs weren't met, and not knowing that, she would have the similar traits as me. We just related so well to things. And I grew up, and it turns out God just continued to bless me with girls. I have 2 biological. I've fostered 1, adopted 1, and have a stepdaughter. I'd love to get a boy in the mix. I keep asking for one, but I am, as a guy who's more athletic, I grew up with more tea parties and playing the dolls than I ever have playing baseball in the backyard. So, hey, if you ever want any dad tips on the best etiquette for tea parties, I'm the master at that.
Shawn, man.
Jesus. Shawn, you should go on tour as a dad stand-up comedian. I think you do real well.
Well, it's my life. You got to laugh at it because look, as a dad, do you really know what you're doing? I mean, you can read all the books in the world, but you have to execute. And just being able to get down there on that level. Don't parent from up above. Don't, because you really don't know. You're the parenting is made down on their level. Get down on the ground with them, talk to them, listen to them. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I tell my children all the time. I ask them for feedback. I know I'm not the best parent. Tell me how I can do better, and listen. And it doesn't, if we put our pride aside and we bring humility to the table, you find out things about yourself that really do make a difference, and they translate back into work and relationships with my wife, things like that. The children pay a lot closer attention than what we realize.
It's true. Very true. Both of you have more than one child. How has your role as a father changed over the years with your kids?
Well, I can tell you this.
Well, I just have the one, so he eats like 3, but I just have the one.
Sorry. So okay, Jeff, let me ask, how have you changed as a father over the years with your one child?
I think I've learned. One of the things I've learned, and Shawn has reminded me of this as a really important lesson, is how, Shawn talked about meeting your kids where they are, whether that's physically down on the floor or more, metaphorically. The thing I would add to that is comparison is the thief of joy. So when I was,
we have so everyone, we're watching live. Jeff is using his phone because in Texas, if you haven't been around lately, they've had some weather challenges. So he does not have internet. He's basically using a Wi-Fi or a hotspot, so to speak, because his modem blew up. But I think we may get him back. But I think we've got him back.
There you go.
There we go.
Back?
We have. Yes, we are. No problem. So you were sharing with us.
Where did I lose you?
Where you said what you've learned from Shawn about being a father and meeting your child where he's at, getting down with him, etc.
Yeah, and just that comparison is the thief of joy, right? So for me, I got, unlike Shawn, I got the boy right out of the gate, right? So that meant to me that we were gonna try soccer and football and all the sports that I played when I was growing up. I wanted to share those with Charlie. Well, that's not what Charlie wants to do, right? And so then it was karate, right? I thought karate would be a good compromise.
We lost again. So until we get him back, I'll flip it on to you, Shawn.
Sure. I could say this. What changed in me as a father is I'm a much better father now at 56 than I was in my 30s. And just that thing. I mean, I wish my oldest daughter I wish I was attentive. I wish I was as patient as I am now with her. You kind of work on doing things, and that's okay. No matter what, if you continue to improve as a father, all of your children benefit from as you grow. So as you make those investments in them, make those investments in yourself, everyone benefits. So each of my children are radically different. Some of them are smart and funny. Some of them like sports. Some of them like art. You know, you get to be a connoisseur of a lot of things as you spread your time around as a parent. So anyway, Jeff, I won't let you to finish your story. I'm glad you're back.
All right. Well, I'll try it again, and hopefully, when I start talking, we won't lose the connection again. But
no problem.
I had started Charlie on all the sports because, like I said, I played every sport. I played 5 sports in high school. Right, that was my refuge. So I wanted Charlie to, big strong kid, to follow my footsteps. It wasn't his thing. And then karate was kind of the last refuge that we tried. And I thought, well, maybe karate will be the thing for him. And so we're sitting there in karate class, and he's just not enjoying it. And it finally took my wife just turning to me and saying, "How long are you gonna do this?" Right? When are you gonna realize that he's not you? And so it was letting him be himself and finding the things that he was excited about. And now this was, we're doing karate when he was 5 or 6. So I learned this lesson fairly early on, but it took me, I was pushing it for a while. I'm thinking Pee-wee football, what can we do here? And then, fortunately my wife, who's much wiser than I am, kind of pointed it out to me, that she said, "Does he look like he's enjoying himself?" Not really, and I kind of had the sweats because I was worried about him doing well. And, and she's like, what are you doing? And so I finally just had to break from that. And I think, hopefully in the intervening, decade or so, I've gotten a little better at not trying to, make him pursue things that I was interested in. It's about finding the things that he's interested in and going and taking an interest in those. But it took me a while to get there.
No problem. Another question for you both. What traditions, if any, that your father passed on to you, have you passed on to your kids, if any?
I would say more than anything else, a sense of humor, being able to laugh at ourselves. My father's extremely funny, and I tried to pass that on to my children. And the humor comes out in different ways. So when we all together, we kind of bust on each other. I think talk about the 5 love languages. We think there's 6. That sarcastic humor is definitely a love language in my family. It lets us feel human, be humble, lets us be okay with the fact that we're all different. I mean, that's probably the biggest family tradition we have. So, and it's still, we look forward to those times when we just get to share, both our successes and failures in humor form. So,
Jeff?
I'd say for us, I would say it's the ritual of certain foods that we have at certain times of the year. So, certain things that we eat at Christmas, or, and it's like, it's the creating of those process, that you kind of bond over. Right. And so we have these, bacon wrapped, oysters that we do every year, and we'll take a picture of them and we'll send them to my dad. Right. And we'll say, hey, we just did a batch. And then he, and it's.
Oh, we lost him again.
Yeah.
No problem. That's okay. So what we'll do, you cover this question. I'll get to the next question with you, Shawn, that I have. Do you think today's young fathers have it easier or more difficult than when you were starting in your fatherhood journey?
It's so much more difficult these days. Primarily, the new element that comes into the world now is social media and how it's affected everybody. And while it's tremendous because there's a tremendous amount of information out there, I mean, a hammer is a very effective tool. You can build yourself a home or anything, but a hammer can destroy things easily. As a parent trying to protect the children from all the influences that they have with social media and technology, it has really brought out some of the skills you have to have, a certain level of hypervigilance on, who they're talking to. Now, fortunately, my children are very transparent and things like that, but I do actually do a lot of parenting and parent counseling with people in my neighborhood and in my community and in my church. And, their children, when they get hooked on some of these things these days, it is really hard. It's the phone could be just as addictive as heroin or cocaine. It can really lead you down a dangerous path. And there's a lot of parents out there who I know, or video games, or different types of things that we didn't have those as options when we were children. So parenting was a little bit easier.
So Jeff, my question is, do you think today's men who are starting their fatherhood journey have it harder or easier than when you started your fatherhood journey?
Oh, I agree with Shawn. I think it's harder now. I mean, I think you think about, like we said, comparison, being the thief of joy. Well, I mean, what's social media, right? I mean, it's steroids. So I think it's harder now.
Okay. Another question I have, and hopefully you can be open on this. What was one of the hardest moments you had being a father so far, and why was it hard?
Well, for me, there's no question. Honestly, getting was going to be, I've been divorced. It fundamentally changes a child. They don't know, they don't understand the elements behind the scene. And we weren't fighters, and we didn't argue a lot, but there were some underlying issues that were untenable, and divorce had to happen. And that is, how do you lead your child through those things? Be honest with them, help them grow, and have them not take on the burden of those failures, of any individual parent's failures, of your collective failures, and let it be their fault. It really does impact the child, and it takes them quite some time to work through it and let them know that, listen, you're sorry for your role in that. You still love them very much. And actually, my daughter and I have a better relationship now. And I think she's more confident in our relationship now than she ever was. But that, without a doubt, that was the biggest struggle any parent faces. There's so many, half of marriages end in divorce, and I don't ever want that to happen and never want to do that again. But it's a challenge, and the pain, your pain becomes their pain, and they don't think children don't see your pain. They do, and they take it on themselves. And sometimes parents lose sight of the fact that we need to, dads in particular, their children's emotional needs and psychological safety are essential to their well-being and their continued development. You could hurt their development by not being open with them and allowing them to share in that experience and get their feelings out to be heard.
Thank you for this share, Shawn. Interesting, a few months ago, I had the opportunity to host a conversation for dads who are separated or divorced raising kids. I will never forget that conversation. It was really, really deep conversation. So thanks for sharing that. Jeff, what was one of the toughest moments in your fatherhood journey, and why was it such a tough moment?
I think one of the toughest moments for us has been recently, just with COVID. And dealing with the change in so I know what works for Charlie, and Charlie is a creature of habit and routine. So the rituals that we've created and how we organize our Saturdays and our Sundays, they're kind of scripted, because that gives him that sense of comfort and that sense of consistency, that he knows every Saturday we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Well, when COVID hit and we had to change all of these things in terms of how we were behaving, that change in routine affected him. Charlie also has some underlying anxiety, just sort of low grade anyway, right? But he's not necessarily the best at being in touch with it or articulating it, but it's there. And so, it was up to me to not, necessarily wait for him to articulate it, because he wasn't going to, but to read the signs and to meet him where he was, to be able to say, and I could see how it would sort of disrupt, for example, like when he would do his chores, you'd find, and we laugh about it now, but why is the cereal box on top of the dryer? I mean, or just things just get discombobulated. It's just because you're not you're not thinking. You're not as present because you're worried. You're wrapped up, and your routines have been disrupted. So so that's been really challenging. And it's not so much the social distancing part, because he can be by himself for long periods of time and be just fine with it. But the routines that he has, it's when those routines change. And again, every kid's different, but for Charlie, those are the things that have been really tough. And again, it's not something that he would verbalize, but I can see by his actions that he's struggling. And so then it's up to me to meet him where he is, make sure he's got a safe place to express how he expresses it. And then create new routines that he can adjust to. But we've struggled with that. We've struggled in the last year with that for sure.
Shawn, how has the pandemic affected you or impacted you as a father?
The pandemic is a travesty. There's no doubt about that. But honestly, the pandemic has brought our family closer. It restored going back to dinner and sitting there for, instead of 30 or 40 minutes when we just go through things quickly before we go on to basketball practice or art, my art project, we were able to reconvene and sit down and really truly share, take the time to really get to know each other. And I think that, and we've continued that now that Texas has kind of opened up a little bit more. Kids have gone back to school, things like that. But the longer family dinners have continued. People share their thoughts, their dreams, their fears, that openness, because this was devastating. I mean, we had the pandemic, and inside the pandemic, we had this unprecedented freeze. We didn't have power or water for 5 days last week. We pretty much had each other to rely on. But because of the pandemic, it was like walk in the park. We had smiles, and we had got a guitar out and sung songs, and just all the little things that you need to do. Our friends came over, and we huddled around the rooms that had light, and we shared with each other, and it made things better. We would do better to go back and restore some of the old school values as parents. They worked for a reason. They were based on personal relationships.
One of the many things I'm enjoying about this conversation is when I see both of you approve what each other is saying. It's a really beautiful thing to just see that not only are you workmates, but you're man mates, if I can use that term. I just made it up. But it's just really wonderful to experience that. So as we're starting to close things, I got some general questions, and I'm going to come back with a father question. So let me ask you this question. What are the 3 happiest moments you've had in your life so far?
For me, the birth of my 2 children and my marriage to my current wife, that would be the 3 happiest moments by far. Those are things and having my children be involved in that process, and seeing the criteria that we look for. Because when I was young, I didn't know any better. Between autism and growing up in Philly, you don't really understand those things foundationally about what a family means, what taking on that obligation of being the parent to another child and having another person step into my life to meet me in that place, agree on the values by which we want to raise our children, show them that way, because we want to pass off. All of these things happen generationally. Where is that cycle of divorce, that cycle of addiction, or that cycle of other things, to be able to break those trends, to be the best parent possible. So that is that's how I see it.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, I got to say, the marrying Samantha, the birth of Charlie, and number 3 for me would be finding my purpose with Potentia and finding this community writ large, and learning so much from this community. The reason that you see that Shawn and I are in sync is we talk about these things. And one of the things people ask me, because I ran a company with, hundreds of employees, and, we're smaller now, but we'll get there one day. We're growing, and, things are, we're on a good trajectory. But people ask me, what's the difference, working in an organization that's majority neurodiverse? And I used to say, it's honesty. because we just lay it out there with each other, right? And there's no judgment and there's no should. It's I'm having a lousy day. I don't. Can you take that call? I'm just not. I'm not going to be any good on that thing today, right? You can be totally real with each other in that way, but I now add vulnerability to that. It's honesty and it's vulnerability, because people bring their whole selves and they're not afraid to be vulnerable with each other. And so I think we've built a real trust, and we've shared some things with each other. We're a real team, and it's Shawn and myself, and hopefully we set a good example, but it's the entire team. And just working with a group of people that I enjoy so much and learn from so much, but in service of something that I care about so much. That would be my number 3. In addition to, of course, being born and marrying Sam.
Wonderful. 2 more conversation pieces. What's the greatest thing about being a father?
I realize it every day. Every day, I'm so proud to find out, just to watch them become themselves. Their self-efficacy, their autonomy, things like we preach in our house, right? You want that child to raise on yourself. You don't want them to be a reflection of yourself. Of course, you want to see your values in them, but watching them take on their own values and their own path and purpose in life, and the steps that they take to fulfill that, whether it's education or sports, or how they shape their friendships, particularly when they know that something is not quite right, and they step into that situation and help friends out of bad situations. And in particular, the last few weeks, as other people ran out of food and water and other things, me and my daughter, we made a midnight run to the one place we knew that had gas, and we had a 4-wheel drive. Did you know that in Canada? We were able to go get things for people, and there's just that sacrifice that just makes things better for everybody. That is so rewarding. There is no amount of money, there's no home run, there's no touchdown that's ever going to get you that feeling of watching your children take on the mantle of those values, those God-inspired values, and pass them on to the next generation.
Jeff?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's seeing that growth. It's seeing Charlie start to step into manhood, right? With all that means, and starting to take responsibility, for if his mom's having a bad day, he's right there, helping her out or helping her around the house, whatever it is, right? Looking after, his friends and his cousins, and showing that he is developing a moral sense, and just watching him grow, and do it his own way, right? And it like Shawn said, it's always great when you see a little bit of, it's probably a little bit of ego residue there, where you see a little bit of yourself, but I want him to be his own man. I want him to make his own choices, and seeing him sort of step into that now is just awesome. I'm so proud of him.
Wonderful. Last thought from both of you. What is a parting message you would have for dads out there?
I can tell you this: being a parent, it's never too late. I've made some mistakes as a parent. I know my father and I, one conversation can change the course of a relationship. Like you said, you never know what's going to bring it about. As a hospital administrator, I've seen a lot of people come together, sometimes when it's too late, and never wait too long. If you need to apologize and that's on your heart, go do it. Offer that opportunity up. If you want that, if they need to apologize, don't ask for it, but make them available. Hey, listen, I want to have a relationship with you. There's nothing that's going to help us get things back on track more than just stepping into relationships and showing that grace that makes all the difference in the world. Make tomorrow a better day.
Jeff, final words for the dads out there.
I think just you've heard us talk about autism and neurodiversity and things like that, and sometimes we get caught up in labels, but we're all unique. We're all individuals.
Oh, unfortunately, we lost him again. And I know something really good was coming out.
Yeah, always when something good's coming.
No problem. Well, I don't know if we'll get him. He's making a fight to come back. I'm telling you, I'm seeing him trying to make back. Okay, let's see. We got him again. We got him again.
You're elusive. You're like Michael Jackson.
So if you just want to give your thoughts, your words of encouragement or words of wisdom for the fathers out there, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just saying that, we're all unique and our kids are all unique, and there's many paths to a great life. And you don't want to be overly prescriptive with your kids. You want to give them the tools and then let them find their path, let them find their passion, and support the hell out of it with love and hopefully showing a good example.
Jeff and Shawn, thank you for taking time out of your positive, productive schedules. Thank you for battling the snow, the ice, the wind, the broken pipes, the boiling water,
the internet,
to make it happen. Really appreciate you taking the time to be on the first episode of Dad's Talking. Thank you for your insight. Myself, I'd like to wish first, as fathers, for everything you have done, are doing, and will be doing. Also for your organization, everything you have done, are doing, and will be doing. I feel exciting, positive times are ahead for both you and the many people you're making a positive impact on. For. The website is at the bottom of the screen if you want to get in contact with both of them or either one of them. And I got to say a big thanks to Beth, who made this conversation happen tonight. Big thank you, Beth. I'd like to also thank Ryan for being here. A lot of other people were here tonight. Dr. Tachi, Birdie Lynn. If I've forgotten your name, it's because of my head, not my heart. So as we close out here, I'm Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 podcast news and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Again, also once a month I host Conversations, the only conversation in the world monthly that's sponsored for dads and fathers by Dove Men Care and Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. I'm also the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a not-for-profit organization, multimedia organization that spotlights Blacks in the diaspora that are involved with food, wine, and travel. As always, I like to say this as I close. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And also, too, remember to give yourselves grace. I think Shawn had mentioned that. I think it's a very key message at this time, everyone. Remember to give yourselves grace. It is not an easy time. And if you want to reach out to Dr. Vibe, there's my email address at the bottom, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. If you have any guest suggestions, especially for fathers that you feel need to be showcased worldwide, I'd love to hear them. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and walk good.